so if you'd all like to stand, please. The Christian Quaker community are going to do the prayer for us today.
Thank you. This is a quote by Martha Graham, who was a US dancer from the 1930s, long before most of you were born. There is a life force that is translated through you into action, and because there is only one of you in all time, this expression is unique. And now we were going to sing Te Araha, and if you like to join in, we'd be really pleased.
Te Aloha, Te Whakapono, Me Te Rangi Marie, Tato Tato E.
Amen. Amen.
Good afternoon, everyone. So the council meeting for Thursday, 31 March is now open, and that was a very nice way to open the meeting. Thank you very much. So we'll start with apologies. I have no apologies. Next one.
Your Worship, I think there should be an apology from the CEO for wearing what he is
Right.
in the audience.
Okay. So you've been singled out, Richard, as a member of the public there. Yes, welcome along. Yeah, okay. So for everyone, Richard's actually on holiday, but he's come back today. So, welcome along, Richard. Confirmation of the agenda. So the agenda is as is, and councillors, you will have received the late circulated report on the submissions to the Waikato Regional Council's annual plan, and we did agree at Strategy and Policy that we would take those as a late item in this meeting. So that's at item 10. And just reminding too that on item 9, the trees at Ruakura, those are going to be picked up in the recommendations from the Strategy and Policy Committee meeting, item 9. So Calvin will pick those up for us then. So I'll move the agenda then as is, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Any against? Okay, thank you. Declarations of interest?
I'll leave the room for C6.
Okay, thank you. Any others?
Madam Chair, C1 also, the minutes from last meeting did not get circulated to Councillor King.
Okay, that's fine, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, public forum. So look, we do have a few speakers in the public forum now. If speakers keep to the 3 minutes, we will be able to get through all of the ones I have on the list here. So I guess I'm asking you to keep to those minutes so that everyone gets their chance. Otherwise, we will have to stop after half an hour as we move into the agenda. So the first speaker in the public forum, I've got Sarah Nathan from Creative Waikato. Hi Sarah, come along. Welcome along.
Thank you for having us. And me. Hi everybody. The sudden and unplanned closure of Founders Theatre a month ago sent shockwaves through the arts and wider Hamilton and Waikato community, and I'm sure that you, as we at Creative Waikato, have been inundated with reactions of disbelief and disappointment. But I don't believe I need to talk to you today about the immense value of the facility, what it means to your community and its critical role in our city. If you've watched the community at its happiest moments in that building, you already know that. If you've looked at other vibrant cities and look at their essential ingredients, you already know that. What I would like to speak about today is the flip side of this very regrettable situation, and that is a phenomenally exciting and rare opportunity for Hamilton. This is a defining moment in time where a city and a council get to reimagine, agree on and set a visionary path for city rejuvenation. By investing and developing arts and culture in this city, a city fosters identity and pride, a sense of belonging for its people, promotes cultural tolerance, shapes vibrancy, and defines its international reputation. A well-devised cultural offering can and will be a powerful economic enabler, contribute to a strong economy, generate jobs and support businesses. In terms of how that takes shape, full community consultation is critical. This issue is much bigger than the arts community, and you will find that most residents have an opinion. Initial feedback favours a rebuild. In fact, not just a rebuild, but a reimagined performance arts centre that creates a cultural heart in the city that is presently missing. There is a wave of opinion that $20 million for a refurbished Founders is a tipping point, and that our dollar is better invested in a new, vibrant, future-proofed development. In terms of location, hey, there are tons of possibilities, but you will find the majority of the public are talking about your riverfront. But what of the price tag? I know that there is we all know that there's really external money available for old and broken, but there is a strong case for attracting new external money for new and visionary. With great leadership, strategy, partnerships between council, government and philanthropic funders are entirely possible in this sector. The previous Minister for Arts and Culture, Chris Finlayson, said more on one occasion, the government is ready to invest in cultural product in Hamilton, but it just needs a vision to back. Lastly, I want you to know about a great fear in our community right now, and that is of paralysis by election year. Founders is the last of the region's theatres, and it's the largest of the region's theatres and sole venue within the Waikato suitable for a multitude of events that could only happen there. Every week and month that goes by without this theatre, there will be a gradual decline in arts capability and audience engagement at that level. It's a slow cultural death. This gap must be addressed as soon as possible. We cannot afford to waste a month and definitely not a year. The spectre of election must not spook councillors from being decisive and visionary. Do not let it become a political hot potato and election issue. Be bold, be excited, show us how great this city can be, and please do it quickly.
Okay, thanks very much, Sarah, for that. Very good. So, Martin, it'll just have to be a quick question because I'm mindful of the time limits.
Okay, because obviously there'll be further opportunities, but the Waikato Creative Infrastructure Plan, very good document, and I'm referring to page 11 where it identifies the different facilities, regional facility, and just repeating the questions I and others asked in February of 2015, Groundhog Day, regional funding. Give us an idea what you think, if we look at a regional facility, either upgraded Founders or a new version, what the funding mix should look like.
I'm not the expert on that matter, Martin. I know that there's government money available to be resourced, to be accessed. I know that philanthropic bodies are ready to talk about the project, but I'm not the financial advisor.
So in terms of equity for other district councils, given it is a regional facility, what work is the creative, and I recognise the Stafford report and the work you guys have done, very good work.
Yep.
But what work do you think, or can you do with us, with our TAs in terms of extra funding?
I'd say that's more a political question than an arts leader question, but you've got neighbours, they use your facilities, that door is open for you to have those conversations.
But Creative Waikato, your brief is for the Waikato. You call this a regional facility.
Yep.
Surely you must have a view, roughly, because obviously you've mentioned correctly around the opportunities for central government lotteries, get that, but probably a better regional funding.
The document says that a regional facility has a potential to be co-funded by a group of political bodies. How that happens is really over to this table.
Okay, thank you. All right, thanks very much, Sarah, for that summary. So the next speaker is Ron Braithwaite. Good afternoon, Ron. 3 minutes, and I think the bell rings at 2.5? 2.5, right, thank you.
My wife wanted to also give her report, but she's unfortunately not been able to get here. I'm going to give you mine and a little bit of hers. My connection with Founders has been quite long and certainly very varied. As a young greenhorn from Gisborne, I arrived in 1970 to go to university, and my very first experience at Founders Theatre was as an undergraduate usher. Later, I was also to graduate from that stage as well. In my first year of teaching at Fraser High School, Warwick, Braithwaite, a slightly distant cousin, convinced me to be a member of the cast for the 1974 Operatic Society's production of Fiddler on the Roof. My parents came from Gisborne reluctantly to see it and stayed to see it again. I met my wife Judy during that show, and and we've been together ever since. And it's 41 years. Jude's parents, Fred and Verona Short, were debenture holders in the theatre, like her grandparents as well, and thousands of other Hamiltonians, because they believed that the theatre was something that Hamilton needed and that their children in the future should get the benefit. Indeed, my wife Jude performed as a snowflake fairy when she was a little schoolgirl. My wife and I performed on Founders Stage an awful lot of times. When the family came along, there was theatre sharing, and for a while, a hiatus, we changed from on stage to backstage in front of house. Our children, Anna, Callum, have also performed on that stage, and Jude and our eldest son, Ross, have also graduated there. Jude became a part-time worker as an usher for the last 10 to 15 years in Founders, and has always found it a really worthwhile thing to do. From 2005, I became a head flyman for the Hamilton Operatic Society, and the first show was the Rocky Horror Show. Having worked occasionally as a flyman before then, and I continue to this day, flying for at least 2 dance schools every year. I've watched in total dismay as over the years we've been able to fly less and less weight. At the end of last year, we were told that we could fly the equivalent of 35 kgs on 3 points on any of the battens. With Mary Poppins in the pipeline, this was discouraging, but not impossible. It has been totally discouraging to see the New Zealand Ballet stop bringing their full productions and other productions and not been able to come because of technical limitations. As a teacher, I brought classes to shows, introduced students to performing and backstage work. I have no idea how many thousands of people we have introduced to the theatre, either by convincing them to be in shows or come to them, and Founders has been a magical place. Mothballing Founders would be totally short-sighted. I don't believe that fixing it is an option. It would become too small too quickly, and there really isn't any way to put nip-on clip-ons into a theatre.
All right, thank you very much, Ron. Our next speaker, Jason Wade. Afternoon, Jason.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and elected members. You have the unenviable position that previous councils have found it too hot to handle. Founders Theatre and its fit for purpose, or lack thereof, is not something new nor undocumented. This isn't your fault, nor is it something that you've brought upon yourselves. You, however, the elected members that now must make the challenging decision on what is right for our city today and what is right for our city in the future. It is a decision that needs to be made with thoughtful consideration, diligence, and the utmost urgency. From the public numbers gathered here today, it would be safe to say that this is a matter of high interest, and it would be to the peril of your re-election ambitions to ignore it and belittle its significance. Whether yourselves attend theatre or the performing arts, or whether you see economic value in its place in society, is irrelevant. It would be a naive person to not to recognise or understand how important this is to our community. A venue such as Founders is essential to a growing city of Hamilton's regional and national significance, not just culturally, but also economically. It has been suggested that residents could travel to Auckland, that Hamilton does not need such a large venue. This statement is so incredibly incongruent to countless Hamilton City strategic and fiscal policies, one would have to wonder the competency of those making such statements. In recent months, in my role as General Manager of Clarence Street Theatre, I've worked closely with the Meteor and the Gallagher Academy of Performing Arts. While I can't speak for Jeremy or Debs, we've had many conversations and are all in agreement that a thriving venue, small or large, is positive for us all. It is positive for our city. This includes Founders Theatre or an equivalent. What the solution should be, I personally am on the fence. A refurbished, repolished gem can just be as brilliant as a new cut stone. But the question is, what will best serve our city for the future? Not just 20 years or 30 years, but 100 years from now. A friend recently said that Hamilton needs a Sydney Opera House on the river. Yes, perhaps somewhat ambitious, but the sentiment was interesting. New Plymouth has the new Lenlai Art Gallery, and that is attracting all sorts of economic and cultural benefits to the region. This is perhaps an opportunity for Hamilton to have something similar for the arts, and not necessarily on the river, But with the newfound resurgence and of the river plan, why not? Whatever you decide, I implore you to think about what sort of legacy you want to leave the city. Wouldn't it be an achievement for you to offer a city that has a heart, that is diverse, that is culturally intelligent and values a wide range of activity, such as sports, arts and performance? In many ways, your legacy could look mightily similar to your arts agenda policy. Just reiterating again what Sarah said, I think it's really, really important that a decision is made with some urgency. What that decision is, there needs to be lots of thought and consultation, but it needs to happen and not just talked about. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jason. Any questions for Jason? No, thank you, Jason. Next speaker, Fiona Bradley. Hello, Fiona. Welcome along.
Nice to see you again.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for giving me the chance to speak on behalf of the Hamilton Operatic Society. I'm the relatively new chairperson, and I certainly came at a very interesting time. It's no surprise to anyone my feelings on the matters. It's been in print, in the media, as we've worked really closely with the council to find a resolution to our problems with Mary Poppins, but also going forward. I've tried really, really hard on behalf of the board of Hamilton Operatic Society not to say too much in the media about our true feelings as we tried to sort out our immediate problems, because that was the only way we were going to stay afloat. But now that we have come to a resolution on that, and we do thank the council very, very much, we do have to look for the future now. And at one point, because I'm quite new to the game, I thought maybe moving into a theatre venue such as, or a big venue, would be quite simple in Hamilton, and I realised that is absolutely impossible. And when I went to see for some new shows for the future, there's just no way we can put those shows on without a huge venue like Founders Theatre. Clarence Street, while it's beautiful, it's not going to be big enough, and we are actually going to deprive our community of these wondrous shows. Of course, we don't want them going to Auckland. We don't want them going to Auckland for anything that we can provide in Hamilton. So I urge you, just like the speakers before, don't sit there thinking that we can use the arena, Claudelands Arena. Please don't think that. It is not going to happen. It could be something in the interim, but that's all it is, and it is restrictive. It will restrict what we are able to do, and that is the last thing we want to be doing in this beautiful city of ours. We want to be flying high like Mary Poppins should have been. We don't want to be restricting anybody. So yes, in the interim we will make that work, but that is not a solution for our city. So I urge you, just like everyone else, please make your decisions wisely, but make them fast. We need to move forward on this, and it's an exciting time for Hamilton and the Greater Waikato.
Okay, Fiona, thank you. Councillor King has a question.
What was the resolution that you came to with council?
Our council were going to reimburse some of our costs that we have incurred with the closing of Founders Theatre so suddenly. We'd already paid, and we can't get that money back through ticket sales, of course.
So has an agreement been made?
No, nothing's been signed up, but we're in discussions.
Okay.
Is council privy to that information when it's available?
Sean?
Yes, if I could respond to that, Your Worship. We had advised councillors that we would be talking to all of the parties who were affected with the book that had confirmed bookings in place, so that we could come to a resolution if they are out of pocket, where we could reimburse them accordingly. So that is part of the process. We will be doing a wrap-up summary of that work once we've completed it with all the various parties involved, including Hamilton Operatic.
So we haven't settled with anyone yet?
Not specifically, but we have come to some verbal agreements which we'll be pursuing.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Fiona. Next speaker, Chris Sidwell. Hi, Chris. Welcome along.
Hi, everybody. A lot of what I want to say has already been said, but as I've had 3 fairly sleepless nights thinking about this, I decided I was going to say it anyway. Founders Theatre, I was 5 years old when I started tap dancing on Founders Theatre stage under the tutelage of Aileen Downey, and many other dancers were the same. For the last 20 years, I've stage managed very significant productions in the like Phantom of the Opera, Mamma Mia and Les Miserables. For the next 10 years, I don't know. My 19-year-old daughter, who was going to be in Mary Poppins, said to me, "Gosh, I wonder if I'll ever dance on a big stage like that in Hamilton." We still don't know. People have asked me, why do you live in Hamilton? Well, it's certainly not for the sea views, but it is an opportunity that we have loved launching large-scale musicals. As you all know, I'm married to David, and together we've been involved in many musicals, and it is the fact that we've got large-scale theatre like Founders that enables that. Otherwise, I'm not quite sure why we would live in Hamilton. Hamilton deserves a metropolitan theatre. We've already heard that. NZSO, NZ Ballet, Hamilton Op. I can remember when the Waikato Stadium was discussed, all the hoopla, the squeaky wheels complaining, letters to the editor. But look at it now. Like, who would not want a theatre that big? When the All Blacks come to town to play, everyone loves it. Claudelands, I remember the hoopla about that. But just 10 years ago, that facility that was there was crap. What's there now is stunning. And whether it's making a buck or not, it's still adding to the city. So what would I want to say to you? What some of the others have said. Please, have vision. What does this city need for the next 50, 60 years? How big is this city going to grow? What do we need to provide? What do the arts need to flourish? Be courageous. Yes, the squeaky wheels will come out about the cost. You need to go through that. You need to weather that. Be creative in sourcing funding. It's not all about the people who rent the venue. Don't vote with your wallets or the election in mind. And as Jason said, what will your legacy for the arts be?
Okay, thank you, Chris. Any questions for Chris? Next speaker, Brenda Sayers. Good afternoon, Brenda.
Good afternoon. Hello, everybody. I actually haven't come that prepared as such. I thought I'd come along to have a listen. But I also wanted to take the opportunity to say a few words. I'm really here on behalf of my mother, I guess. She was one of the many people that raised money for the Founders Theatre. I noticed in the report it said that it was entirely funded by the community. And I know that we had progressive dinners and all sorts of activities that went on in the 50s and 60s. Of course, I wasn't actually born then, was I? No. But I have probably outlived my useful purpose because I am over 50. But I do notice that it said here in the executive summary, the theatre had an anticipated lifespan of approximately 50 years when it was built in 1962. That astonishes me, and we were very good friends with Aubrey de Lille, and I do wonder why he would have built a building that only had a lifespan anticipation of 50 years. A very competent architect. If you go down to the museum and see his watercolours of buildings that he unfortunately saw destroyed in Hamilton, you would wonder why he actually designed a building that only had a lifespan of 50 years. Now, certainly components within the theatre, like infrastructure, I can understand. But the actual building, and also our good friend Paramatchit doing the mural, I can't understand why someone like him would build a building that only had a lifespan of 50 years. That's my question. I would like to see the documentation that had that in the architect's specifications and brief. My father was an architect as well, and he's won awards for enduring architecture. And even if a building gets repurposed, like, for example, the Wallace Art Gallery out at Morrinsville, my father designed as a post office. It's now an art gallery. Nothing structural has changed in that building at all. All the walls, all the floors, everything, all the lighting, everything is the same. It's been repurposed. Now, the Founders Theatre was a gift to this council. The community paid for it. Now, it was given to the council. It's been owned and operated by this council, and therefore was supposed to be maintained. It's been listed as a strategic asset of significance to this community. Now, I know that whoever wrote this report Sean Murray is at pains to say that council has appropriately maintained that. I guess I would question that. However, that said, we're not into a blame here, we look into the future, and I have heard the previous speakers and I applaud them for their passion and gumption and vision for council taking the bull by the horns and throwing some money into this. Yes, there is some money to be spent. I don't know if we've got enough money in the city at the moment to put in millions and millions of dollars and build some iconic sort of opera house by the river. I don't even know if you've got the capacity in the city for the numbers to attend such an venue, but I do want to see the likes of the New Zealand Symphony Orchestra, which actually hasn't been mentioned much in the performing arts side of things here, because we're going to be going to the Clarence Street next week. Now that has a maximum capacity of 500 people, and that's a third of what, well no, what is it, 1,200, what they can have at the Founders Theatre, and we are very doubtful about the acoustic compatibility of that as a place. So if Hamilton loses a New Zealand Symphony of Orchestra, what kind of city have we got, really? Yes.
Okay, Brenda, any further comments you want to make? Yep, your 3 minutes is up. Is there any other final word you want to say?
Well, I don't envy you. I just think that whilst I hear there's a lot about urgency, I totally agree. My mother is sitting here in the audience. She wants to be able to continue to hear these orchestras and to go to Mary Poppins and all the other things that we've enjoyed doing over the last 50 years.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, the next speaker is Tom McRae. Welcome along, Tom.
Yep, hi all. We're actually here over about $116,000. That's to fix the fly and all that stuff. I myself would actually like to know, the public to know, what the Shelton review cost, what the PricewaterhouseCoopers summary of issues cost, what the refurbished business case costs, what the health and safety report from Serious Safety cost, what the consultation from Dunning Thornton cost. Could we make that public, what all that cost?
Yep.
Yep, to the public.
I've got a note and we'll make sure that we ask that question when the report.
Because it appears to me that what we've got here is the veranda's broken on the house, so what we'll do is we'll bulldoze the whole house instead of just fixing what's there. It's a great venue, I love it, fix it. That's me, thank you.
All right, thank you, Tom. Next speaker, Andrew Buchanan-Smart. Welcome along, Andrew.
Good afternoon, Mayor and elected councillors. I think most of the important stuff has actually already been articulated, and very well articulated. I think the challenge for the council is that they have to act, and they need to be visionary, because whatever they do must last for the next 50 or 100 years. The only observation that I would like to make is that with Founders out of action, in essence there's a big black hole for facilities for the next 3, 4, 5 years if you're building a brand new venue. So the question is, what is the challenge for the arts community when there's no venue to perform in? And that's a major challenge for them. It's significant. It's not only affecting the performance side, it's affecting the whole economy, it's affecting audience generation. When people come to an arts activity, they go out and have a coffee, they have something to eat. It is part of the fabric of your city, and that will be affected until any new venue or existing venue is refurbished or erected. That will affect economic activity. So I think what we need to do is to look at this fantastic opportunity in terms of an investment in our community, in our city, and it's a long-term intergenerational investment. It's in your power. You must show and demonstrate leadership for not only for our generation, but for generations to come. I urge you to make the right decision, and I urge you to make it quickly. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Okay, final speaker, Susan Todden. Good afternoon, Susan.
Hi. Hi everybody, so I'm recently appointed as CEO of Orchestra Central, so I'm going to follow on from the lady that mentioned particularly about the orchestras. So it's well known that audiences to orchestras are becoming what's described as wider and shallower. So more people are going to more things and they want more variety and they want more experience. Rather than attending one thing once a year, they might attend 3 or 4. So there's some immediate pressure on the venues that exist, and there's also some responsibility that comes to us as arts administrators to ensure that what we're offering to the public in order to improve audience participation is what our people in Hamilton want to see. But I want to just to talk to you briefly about our thoughts on where we think orchestras fit in the story of Founders. While it's a loss to Hamilton in the short term, this recent closure, we believe, now creates a wonderful opportunity for conversation and creative and brave thinking. If we are to be the significant economy that is the vision of Hamilton, it's vital that we have not only a cultural identity, but that we have a vibrant and thriving art scene. Pivotal to this is a place that serves as a meeting place, a performance space, and as a home of the arts. It would be very easy to start with a budget and use that as the decider of what this city can afford. But in doing so, I believe that we risk stifling the very nature of arts and culture, and it would be foolhardy to take a position that states money is not a full deciding factor, but in the long term, a wider view of what our city is and can be should be the bigger part of that conversation. The city leaders have a unique opportunity to truly step up and shape the city. Let's be part of that conversation and uphold the importance and value of a vibrant arts culture within that, and the orchestras want to be part of that conversation. Thanks.
Thank you, Susan. Are there any questions for Susan? No, thank you very much. Okay, councillors, so that's the end of the speakers in the public forum. Thank you very much for coming along and sharing your thoughts. So next item on the agenda is item 5. Page 5, which are council minutes, and those are the minutes for the 16th, 18th, 24th and 25th of February. So I will move those, and seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Are there any questions on those? Yes, Councillor Mallett.
Sorry, flick through here. Yes. Oh, sorry, page 15. Bullet point B talks about the council authorised the CEO to enter into a mutually agreeable governance and operations agreement with Rotorua High School Entertainment Established Board of Trustees and Ministry of Education for the operation of the indoor centre by 31st March. That's today? I was just wondering if that's been completed?
Through you, Your Worship, it hasn't been completed, but there's been significant...
Has or hasn't, sorry?
It hasn't. There's been significant progress made. But the ministry were, really the 31st of March date was, really needed a council resolution by that date rather than the actual agreement being signed. So they're comfortable where council stands. We're just making sure that all the matters which councillors raised around the level of community access and the appropriate design of the floor plan and the functionality of the facility.
Okay, so was it, sorry, thanks Lance. So were we advised of all that? I mean, when we put a date in this resolution, that was for a reason. Why wasn't that what you were just telling us now? Why didn't someone put their hand up and say, sorry, we can't get it done by the 31st of March?
We thought we could do it by the 31st of March, but it's taken a bit longer than what we expected, getting all the parties together. Some of the MOE people have to come from other parts of New Zealand for that. We've been doing some of that remotely. I'd see this as being completed probably within the next fortnight.
Can I suggest then that we make a note of that in the next council meeting? Can we please have a report that confirms that? And can you also note that the Deputy Chief Executive has said that he expects that that will be completed in the next 2 weeks? Thanks, Councillor Mallett, for raising that.
Thank you.
Councillor Gallagher.
Just see at top of page 16, that 2 sentences at the top is a bit confusing. People leaving an adjourned meeting. You might want to just clarify that, check the records. Whether we left a minute early, I don't know.
I can clarify that, Madam Chair. Councillors Gallagher, Green and McPherson left the meeting at the same time as the meeting adjourned. So at 2:25 the councillors left the meeting, and at 2:25 the meeting adjourned. So it's just recording accurately when the councillors retired from the meeting.
Okay.
Thank you. Right, any other questions on those? Yes,
Just one other, and that's page 13. The bottom of the page, Waterworld, there's an action regarding a report, a Price Waterhouse report is expected in a few months' time. Can we just have a bit of clarity on what a few months' time means? Sorry, that may have been actually what the said.
That report's the one that's coming back to the next Finance Committee meeting around the operational budget for Waterworld that's been discussed on a number of occasions. So there's a full report, including that's coming back to the April 21st meeting of Finance Committee.
Okay, thank you. Nice.
Right, any others? Thank you, councillors. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Any against? Okay, thank you. All right, next item, item 6, page 23, Founders Theatre report. Welcome along, Sean. Does Chad need to join you, Sean? Or
Perhaps
welcome to.
If there's some questions, I'll call on him if I need him.
The Chief Executive's joining you. Right, okay. Welcome along, Chief Executive.
I'd like to apologise for my attire. I am on leave, but as the Chief Executive, I made the decision to close Founders down, so I thought it was appropriate that I am present at this meeting for any questions in that respect as well.
All right, okay, that's fine, thank you. So Sean, we'll hand over to you and to take us through
yes, thank you, Your Worship.
You want to make.
Look, I'd like to really take the report as read. I think this has not been an easy situation for any of us to find ourselves in. The decision or the information that came to us from various experts that led us towards the closure or temporary closure of Founders came out of the investigation that you asked us to do with regards to the development of a business case to advance a refurbishment program for Founders Theatre. It's something we've always had in the back of our mind that will hit us one day. We didn't expect us to hit us at this stage. I'd also like to perhaps add on that, just briefly, that this is a situation where it's not just one thing that has led us to this decision. It's actually a number of different things about our concerns over the building and the operating safety of certain elements of the fixtures and fittings in the buildings. And when you have a number of different things in different areas, it just makes you increasingly nervous. The other aspect of it as well is that a fix in one area requires a fix in another and another and another. So there has been a knock-on effect that we've been facing here. But look, I'm happy to take any calls or questions from you.
Phone calls.
Sorry, yeah. Wrong word.
It might happen in the future.
But I want to assure you that my priority right now is for us to, this is a significant item. It's an issue that triggers our significance policy, is an engagement policy, and we're very keen to move as quickly as we can with the proposal that we get out to public consultation on the matter for the future.
Can I just picking up on a couple of questions, I guess, that were raised in the public forum. one of the speakers, Tom, raised, what were the costs of the expert reports, and there was budget allocated last year for those. Can you just clarify that?
Yes, Your Worship. Look, I can't give you the exact combined cost of the various reports, but you will recall that February last year you allocated $100,000 for us to put towards the investigation for the business case for the Founders refurbishment, and that has been soaked up by the various reports that we've done so far. The amount is a big amount, but it would stress that it's a complex business, it's complex architectural design, complex operating systems that are beyond the norm.
Okay. And the other question was, I think it was Tom as well, said that, I just want to get clarity on this because I wasn't sure where the figure came from, and excuse me if I've misinterpreted it, but I think he said that the issue was to do with $116,000 on a veranda. I think, have I got that?
I think that was an analogy, I think.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that, yes, because I wondered where the 116,000 came from, because I've certainly got millions in my report. So that is not a figure that means anything to you?
No.
Okay.
Just make sure, does Tom speak?
Okay, so I think those were the only notes I had from that. All right, so if there's no other questions, I'll go to questions. So, Councillor McPherson, I've got you.
Thank you. And actually following from the issue you raised, rising from Tom's statement, I took his some of his questions to be analogies as well. So I'd like to extend them a bit to see if we can get from you some information about not just the reports and work that's been done in the last year that might have been part of that 100,000, but others in the last decade, let's say, that have been done, because there's at least one other major one leading to a proposal for some repairs and refurbishment in a previous long-term plan, which didn't highlight the immediacy of what we're now facing. So I'd like to know the costs, and B, whether there's been any information ever provided to council about the fact that it's about to fall over, so to speak.
Yeah, look, I'm sorry, I can't give you the
I'm not after that
cost
now,
right now, but I can get that to you. If you're referring to the Shan Shelton report in 2014, that report was very, very clear at the time that their view of their assessors was that the life of the flying system had limitations, and they did suggest that that we do some remedial action, some short-term
That's not
fixes.
what I was referring to.
Okay,
I was actually referring to what was before, the ones that we'd had prior to that.
All right, look,
which we also spent a fair bit of money on in some cases.
I'd have to research that for you.
So just following up from that, what might be helpful is there's sort of a collection of reports over the last probably 8 years, would it be?
It may have been longer, Your Worship.
Maybe
14, 15 years.
Maybe 10. There was a reference to an Opus report.
Yeah,
there has been a lot of reports, so we'll
Right,
get that summary for you.
Ted's here at the ready. This is good. So
I
anyway, it's a
think
good point.
The one particular point's important in that, Your Worship, and one speaker, I believe he was the CEO of the Clarence Street Theatre, said previous councils had, I don't think he used these words, but basically it meant that they'd failed to grasp the nettle. So I'd like to home in on what previous councils had been told.
So perhaps if we make a note of that, I think it would be useful just to get the history with the reports. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Oh, no? Okay, I've got Councillor Pascoe.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. A couple of questions. One, given the sense of urgency or the speed that the presenters have indicated pretty much unanimously earlier on, and also perhaps from some councillors that I've spoken to about the need today to be setting some timelines. I note in paragraph 43 around the seismic, is it? Seismic rating, that this could take up to 3 months to complete. Do we have any sort of feeling as to how long it's going to take, and how far are they already through with the testing that they're doing?
We checked in again with the engineers this morning on the time frame. They will actually commence work in the next 2 to 3 weeks, but they are still working to their schedule where they will not be able to give us their report until the end of June. That's not satisfactory. We're not entirely happy with that. However, it is difficult to get availability of the specialist engineers for this type of a building and structure. And because of the state of the market at the moment, which is pretty busy, we are pushing them very hard. The work that they have to do is actually quite invasive, so it does mean going into the building, putting holes into the walls, and there's quite a bit of actual physical work that's going to take place in order for them to understand what's going inside underneath the cladding. So we're not happy with it. We've looked at alternatives to try and speed the process, but we believe this is the best that we can do at this stage.
Okay, that's certainly not the answer that I would have preferred, but if that's what it is, it is.
Yeah. If I could just, if I might add, Councillor, through the chair, the seismic testing of the building is just one of those elements. So a number of other elements to do with our concerns over operational safety and so forth are there, irrespective of the seismic strength of the stage house and the auditorium. The seismic strength of the stage house, or certainly the auditorium, and the outcome of that will impact on, if you were to do a refurbishment or a renovation of Founders, that will impact on your plan and your budget. Which we've sort of got a bit of an indication what that might mean, but that's all that information will tell us. It won't actually change where we're sort of headed because of the other issues or multiple issues that apply at the theatre.
So waiting for this is not necessarily going to stall the whole process of perhaps reaching out to the community and finding out what the options are.
I don't think
pursuing other alternatives while this is being done?
Not at all, and hopefully the outcome of that report will tie in and come in at around the time that we complete our consultation process with the community, so that will all collide in together.
Okay.
So just picking up on that, because I just want to get clarity there, what you were saying is that the drilling of the holes and everything will determine what the earthquake strengthening number is.
Correct.
Because it's a more invasive and deep dive methodology that they're going to apply. But how does that relate to upgrade, refurbishment in terms of costs?
If, for example, they found that there's a suspicion that the auditorium roof and walls are not sound, and if they find that they aren't sound, they'll need to be replaced and or strengthened.
The walls,
and
the walls
potentially the walls that are holding the load of the roof. So if that is found to be the case, then that will add cost to any refurbishment program, because you're just going to have to put in more steel basically in order to strengthen it. So the work will actually establish that issue of cost for us. But and we need to remember that this is a place of public assembly. There's a lot of souls in these rooms. We need to be pretty clear how it stands. The other thing to be reminded of as well is and it comes back to this knock-on effect, if we do some work in one part of the theatre, it does have an impact potentially on the next bit to the theatre where it all joins up. So you can't look at everything in isolation.
So just on that then, because this is the 19 point whatever million or 20 million that's in here, does that anticipate earthquake strengthening requirements? It's got that in the budget breakdown, but to what extent is that?
Yes, it does anticipate that, and we had an estimate from our advisors that if it is required to be strengthened or those components of the building to actually be rebuilt, that would take the refurbishment proposal up to around that 20 million mark that we've been talking. So that is included within that level.
So 20 million, sorry, is 14.
So 20.4 million, which you have on page 34, is the worst case scenario in terms of the seismic testing.
Yes, for the auditorium.
That it needs the full Monty, so to speak.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, okay. The second question, which is only a minor one, which is around the demolition, and that's also on page 34, the demolition of the Founders and decommissioning. You have on that table in paragraph 94, 1 to 300,000 as being the high end of the cost, and yet on the previous page you're looking at about 400 and in excess of 400. Is it the
Yeah, look, I
400?
think I'd want to work on the 400, and I apologise for that.
So the figures
there is an
in
area,
86
but I think the 400.
and 87
yeah.
are probably on the low side.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Mallett?
Thank you. On page 26, just a little bit of context, up on paragraph 34, the first one, you've got patronage from 2003-04 to 14-15. That's a significant decline in patronage. It's very roughly, it's a 40% drop in patronage, isn't it?
Correct.
Why is that?
I think that's a mixture of factors, as we've sort of discussed before. We've had that period where we had the impact of the GFC, which did impact on theatre patronage right around the country for a short period of time. We've also had increasing instances where shows that would normally come to Founders have not come because of either the limited service that we've been able to cater to, or because of the composition of the stage house and so forth hasn't been sufficient for the size of the show. We've also had, as you're aware, and we've discussed in previous reports, we've had a fairly dramatic increase in the dissatisfaction of theatre goers, so people who have been attending the theatre with the facility, the services, the general comfort and so forth. So we have had a collision of a few items happening.
Over that time, Hamilton's population's increased significantly, hasn't it? So we're getting declined patronage with a background of increased population.
Yeah.
So fewer percentage-wise people in Hamilton are using the facility.
Yes, you could make that case.
Okay. Could you just give us a little breakdown of the revenue, where the revenue comes from? So it's 0304 we had 622,000, and that's kind of stayed, certainly hasn't sort of dropped the same way the patronage has dropped. So is that made up by ticket sales, hireage, selling, you can buy beer and things there?
Look, it's primarily made up by the income we receive from venue hires. And we, depending on...
So this is when my daughter's ballet group goes and hires it for a couple of days, yeah? Okay.
Correct. So they will pay us a fee for the venue hire, and if there's any additional services that they require of us, we charge for those services. So, and in some instances, depending on the arrangement we have with a commercial show or a promoter, for example, we might get a share in the ticket take and the revenue from ticket sales. So it's a multitude of areas, but really, ostensibly, it's through venue hire, and then there's a few other revenue opportunities that we have beyond that.
Because we never run a show there, do we? Hamilton City Council never runs a show. There's always a third party hiring it, and they might just pay a flat rental, or they might pay a flat rental plus a little commission over certain targets and all that sort of stuff.
That's
similar
correct.
to the event centre.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. Okay, so that's the revenue side of it. What currently is the operating cost?
Sure. The budget for the current financial year at operating level, to give you, so I just better get to the right page. We basically operate at operating level before all of our indirect costs are put on at a deficit of $570,000. So we're essentially getting in 490,000 in revenue and income, but we have an operating cost of just over $1 million, and that nets us to an operating deficit of 570,000.
And that's been reasonably consistent. That's not an outlier. That's the standard.
Yeah, probably reasonably, a bit of up and down, but reasonably consistent for the last few years. I haven't got the figures going back beyond 4 years, so I couldn't tell you whether it's been any dramatically different else in other periods of time.
So that's the direct loss, and on top of that there would be overheads which may or may not reduce if Founders wasn't there.
Yes, well that's correct. I mean, basically, as with all of our venues, we then have the cost of depreciation that we add to that, the cost of capital or the interest charge, and an overhead allocation cost to contribute towards other council services. So yes, that's added to that figure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Toomer.
Shaughnessy is dealing with the PwC report. I noticed in the PwC report that there was an evaluation carried out back in 2007, and at that stage the building was not deemed to be any earthquake prone. And then of course Christchurch came along and we all got very nervous, and as a result of that further reports have been carried out. I'm struggling to see how we can actually make any decision when I look at the conclusion in the PwC report, which, and from what I can observe, and no disrespect to PwC, but it looks like they've read a number of reports, cut and pasted them from various engineering firms, like Opus is one, Dunning Thornton Engineers from Wellington is another one. And their conclusion actually comes up to say that until a DSA is undertaken, and I presume that is a safety audit, something safety audit, I'm not too sure what the D stands for.
Yeah, that's the seismic testing that we've been talking about.
Undertaken, the question of whether the building is dangerous, prone or risky cannot be answered. So until we actually get this report where they drill into the holes, into the walls, as his worship has mentioned, we're really still in the dark. Would that be a fair comment?
That, once again, that relates to the point I mentioned earlier on to do with the structure of the auditorium and also to get a better understanding of the strength of the stage house. We still face the issues that we have with the flying system. However, and in the instance where we replace the flying system, it then begs the question, can the stage house hold the flying system in terms of what's its strength or rating and so forth. And then there's, you add to that other work that's required in terms of fire safety. If you do a major piece of work on your building, you then need to test that you're compliant on today's code, those sorts of things. So it's all part of the maze that we're working through.
So as far as the flying system goes, there doesn't seem to be any engineers who are prepared to certify the existing flying system.
Correct.
And I suppose the only way you could really test it is to load it up until it breaks. Would that be correct?
Correct.
That's correct.
Okay.
Are you suggesting that, Councillor Toomer?
Well, it seems it's the only answer we can come up with. So.
Seems, that's right. It does. Well, councillors, are there any other questions on the report? Yes,
Yes, if I could ask another question, which I should have asked earlier on, and that's looking at the funding options which start on page 30, and we've got these various graphs showing the impact of debt to revenue percentages given each of the options and the estimated costs. First question is, I assume that these graphs are based on the approved 10-year plan, which was approved, I think, back in June of last year.
I'll hand over to David Bryant.
Your Worship, if I could answer that. Yes, they are.
Okay, so it does not include the fact that the council has since returned to operating surplus and that we have sold down, and I'm just doing a quick tally in my head now, but we've sold at least $45 million worth of assets since June of last year.
So just to give better clarification in terms of what the graph is based on, it starts from the 10-year plan, then it takes into account our current better debt position that we're forecasting for this year based on activities, as well as the changes that we've agreed at council with the annual plan. It also takes into account asset sales, for example, the pensioner housing, even including the payment that will be in 2019. So this is a current up-to-date position.
So each of those graphs reflects those.
Correct. So that's the starting position, and then we've added each option on top of that starting position.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Councillor Gallagher.
Yeah, just funding, and it may be, I'll seek your guidance, I think, maybe out of the scope of this question, it may relate to the moving forward. But in 2015, in February, I asked questions of you around the issue which I've asked Sarah Nathan around regional funding. And I've particularly made the point that historically, obviously, that if you live in a $500,000 house in Dinsdale, $400,000, but if you live in a multi-million-dollar home, literally, in Tamahiri, around Lake Rotokawa, you pay zero. Through the Chief, how has that particular debate, and this was the whole issue of regional funding, you know, regional facilities fund and all of that, has there been much progress over the last year, to your knowledge?
Look, we had, in terms of the work that I've been involved in with regards to founders, we have not entered into that discussion. We have focused on the business case and the situation at hand. We have certainly done some estimates that are in the business case that are attached to this paper on what external funding we think we could secure on a refurbishment or a remediation type project. But that has provided for some calculated estimates of what could perhaps be collected from central government, from private trusts, and also from other territorial authorities. But it is just a paper sort of assessment, and we have not had any discussion with any other council on this issue.
No substantive. Just picking up the Deputy Mayor's point a year ago where he talked about the, $4 or $5 on the ticket, as one way of trying to recoup the 60% or 50% of non-Hamiltonians that use the theatre. Any progress on that discussion?
Not specific to founders, but we have had discussion with other parties related to our other venues about the concept, and the response, to be blunt, has been pretty poor in terms of other parties having a really major concern about the sensitivity of their ticket pricing and whether someone will buy a ticket for $35 when they've only prepared to pay $25, for example, and they're more concerned about the sensitivity of the market making a decision whether to go to the show or not go to the show as a result of what the price of the ticket is. So that's where we have, certainly with the commercial organisations and even those sporting organisations, come against a bit of a brick wall on that question. They're really concerned about the sensitivity of the prices of tickets.
So if you look at, say, Rotorua or a facility in Auckland, because obviously Auckland's larger, bigger, huger, better, versus, say, Rotorua, I guess both are defined by their territorial boundary, are they, in terms of, how the facility in Rotorua could recoup or be funded?
That's my understanding, but I really don't know the detail of how their fundings are working. So,
and the proportions over the last year, are they basically the same in terms of, where you've done the analysis of people within the current Hamilton boundaries versus outside?
Yeah, look, where we've done the analysis, they have remained basically the same. They vary a little bit according to the type of event. There are some events that tend to attract more people from outside of the region than from within Hamilton itself. But yeah, you're right, the proportion's roughly the same.
And presumably, just final quick question, if looking forward, if we're looking at some kind of discussion paper for the community, it'd be quite easy to actually clearly define around the external funding, what the external funders would give us. So, for example, if you have the Dunedin Town Hall, the Dunedin Regent Theatre being redone, all right, it'd be quite interesting to know sort of what external funding came for a significant redo versus a brand new project.
And we have actually done that investigation already, so we have a bit of a sense of the various funding sources and the sort of levels of funding and proportions.
Thank you.
Councillor Mallett again.
Thank you. Just coming off what Martin just mentioned, and I think, Martin, you're talking about possibly a surcharge for non-residents, non-ratepayers, if they're using our facilities, this Hamilton's facilities. Is that the sort of thing you're talking about?
I was alluding to a question the Deputy Mayor raised in February 2015, and I think, Gordon, you can help me, but it was a kind of a ticket levy at the point of sale. Which obviously,
I just wonder if Sean could answer then, how practical is that? I mean, the easy thing is you just get your mates who live in Hamilton to buy your tickets for you, don't you?
Look, it comes back to...
I don't know.
Not everyone thinks like it.
That's what they do.
Yeah,
pretty dopey if you don't.
That's what they do. I mean,
it's like when you used to get your mates who were 20 to buy the booze.
So,
no, look, you're exactly right. You need to take a lot of care into the mechanism that you deploy in terms of how to do that. You really have to handle that quite carefully so that you can avoid the rorts. So I know of a situation where an online sale in New Zealand for stuff was picked up in Australia, and the company lost $900,000 as a result. So you've got to take a lot of care in how you do it. But I would still go back to my earlier point, the real concern, and I'm not averse to the Deputy Mayor's ideas on this. I actually agree with it fundamentally, but the concern is the sensitivity of ticket prices. And to be clear, I don't think someone buying a ticket cares whether a portion of it is going to pay for the venue or not. They're just saying, is going to that event at that price worth it, or is this price lower down worth it? I've sort of done a lot of this work in previous jobs over the years, and the sensitivity of admission prices, ticket prices, it's quite amazing how sensitive the market is.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, Your Worship, can I just clarify for Councillor Mallett, the comments that I was relating to a development levy, call it what you like, was on all tickets sold at all of our venues through Ticketek. And the reason for that is there is an alarming trend in New Zealand now for local government to buy events, such as Invercargill paying $400,000 to have the last Parker fight. So effectively, the council was using ratepayer money to subsidise the ticket price. And I think that's wrong if you subscribe to the user pays principle. So I just wanted to clear up. There was no way you could really identify who was a Hamilton person or across the region. And all of our venues are selling tickets 40% roughly in Hamilton, and the other 60% in the rest of the Waikato region and the outlying areas as well. So I just needed to give you that clarification.
Thank you.
All right, are there any other questions on the report? Yes, Councillor King.
Are you aware that traditionally councils justified projects like this by getting a report, asking for a report, a cost-benefit report to justify extra nights stayed in the city, extra meals, extra money spent, and that's traditionally been a justification for building stadiums and arenas and the like. So that traditionally Hamilton's been labelled as we benefit by people coming to our town.
That's one part of it. So certainly for a number of our activities that the city's been involved in with sponsorships and events and so forth, we do talk about economic benefit in terms of, say, overnight stay, and it's a good measure for that. However, that is only one element to it. I'm not sure, I haven't been here long enough to know what previous instances have happened here in Hamilton, but certainly I'm not sure that I'm aware of any instance where it's solely predicated on an economic return on visitor nights. There's always a much broader sort of basket of measures of benefit in an investment. In an investment like Founders Theatre, there is no economic case. There is certainly a case you can say a benefit or a spin-off will be attracting people into the city to spend money in our city and so forth, but the true case really is the benefit to the community and the positioning it offers for the city.
So now that this Founders discussions come up, where talks also come up of roping in our neighbours, our cousins, rich and poor, to ask them to put into the project because it's a benefit to the region. I mean, how on earth do we propose to ever get traction on that?
Look, I'm not qualified to answer that question. That's not an area that I've been engaged in at this stage. But
through the Mayor, it's not an uncommon model. So there are various facilities around New Zealand whereby the facility is funded not just by the territorial authority that facility is located in, but by neighbouring authorities. I think one of the ones, Waikato Stadium was. I think there's a rate. I think the Westpac Stadium in Wellington is funded by based on a distance from the stadium to the next local authority. They pay a proportion of the cost based on the proximity to the stadium and so forth. So there's numerous models around the country where this has worked, and it's just another rating mechanism for collecting money. So it comes down to your relationships and discussions and so forth, where you are in that particular region, what's considered appropriate and so forth. Having regional strategic plans that identify assets as of strategic importance is a good place to start with a discussion with your neighbours.
The last big project that happened in the region was probably the Advantage Room. Did Hamilton Council put money up for that?
No, we didn't. Hamilton ratepayers did via the Regional Council, but Hamilton City Council didn't.
And we've just put up $4 million in Hamilton to put in indoor rec centre in partnership with the Ministry of Education. Have any of our neighbours put money in towards that to help with that?
No.
Okay. Now, in the annual plan, we budgeted $13.8 million towards refitting the stage house of the Founders Theatre, and that got voted through by majority. We didn't go to consultation. We didn't go to public consultation to spend that $13.8 million.
Yes.
I think that was the Founders was identified in our consultation document as an area of focus. So within our consultation document, which is the precursor to our long-term plan, we went out to the community with our significant issues. Founders was identified within that. So that formed the basis for our consultation.
And had we said at that stage we were spending 13.8?
I can't recall the specifics. I think it was included in there though.
It would have been on the plan.
Yeah. I can Google it and find out, but I think it was.
Yeah, it was.
So because we're increasing that 13.8 now by a further, possibly by a further 6 million, we need to go back to consultation if we were to go in that direction.
That's correct, but also since the news of the temporary closure of Founders has been out, the community of its own volition has also been raising the bigger picture issue of renovate or rebuild, and I think that's a big question that we need to discuss with our community and get a sense of their views on that. So that has also prompted a need, I think, for further consultation.
Another point to note is Founders Theatre is noted as a strategic asset within our significance and engagement policy. If council makes a decision to permanently close Founders, for example, we still need to consult on that decision as well, because it is listed as a strategic asset. So for that reason, really from this point forward, we need to engage in some form or another with the community before we make a decision to progress.
I'll just get a clarification, Councillor King, on the consultation document for the long-term plan.
So I've actually got that information here, Councillor King, and we did consult on 13.9 million, and there was a series of questions around what of key projects that we had listed and initiatives and proposals that people wanted deferred, brought forward, or not done at all. So those are the questions in the LTP, and Founders is one of those at 13.9 million.
Thank you. So we're now in paragraph 8. We're talking about the seismic strength and the roof of the building and the walls of the building. We clearly don't know yet. The building could be a write-off once we get the report back. Is that correct?
I don't think we'd say that the building would be a write-off, but it would certainly point to certain elements of the building that would need to be either replaced or totally or restructured in some form. Now, the question is what the cost of that is. We have an estimate which we've factored into the to go from the 13.8 through to the 20 million level. But if the seismic or the testing report came back and it discovered an awful lot more than what we currently envisage, then obviously that's the question we'd have to ask. That's in terms of what's the total impact here.
So we don't really know yet.
Well, we don't know in terms of that element of it, but we, as I said before, we do know in terms of other aspects of what needs to be done at Founders.
Okay, and paragraph 11, we talk about exceeding our financial strategy limits. How do we know that we're going to exceed them yet when the seismic testing hasn't been, we haven't done, I mean, we obviously haven't got the blueprints for the building, I presume, still. So how do we know until we get this report done?
So there's two answers to that question. First of all, we've done an assessment, and we've had or our expert advisors have given us assessment of the likely cost, and that's what's taken us up to this $20 million
And just
mark.
clarifying
And we
that,
know.
can you just clarify that that is an anticipation of the worst case scenario? Did I hear you say
Yes,
that earlier?
yes, it is. It is at this stage. So we are flagging now that this is what it's likely to be. The so we are sort of signalling to you now where we think it could end up. The other aspect to it is once again the existing work that is in the LTP is timed for the year 2021. If we were to look to advance it to start next year, for example, it does have an impact on our financial strategy. So the timing, it's not just the amount of money in the 10 years, it's also when we place it in the 10 years.
Do you remember when this trimester started and you were asked whether the Founders was a earthquake-prone building? Do you remember your answer to that question?
I can't recall a question on being earthquake-prone or not. I can certainly recall answering the question about concerns we had about the safety of the flying system, the life of the flying system, and also the ability of the stage house to have the appropriate strength for replacing the fly system. I can't recall a discussion specifically on seismic strength.
Can I just clarify, however, it was assessed for seismic strength, as are all our buildings, so perhaps CE, can you just address that? Because it's got a current rating as we speak.
That's correct. So in 2007, there was a assessment done, and I think that came back at 58% compliant, 55% compliant with the National Building Standards. As you'll see in the reports that are included in the agenda pack, there's been downward pressure on that, and the latest assessment for the back of houses, I think 34%, and they use the word ballpark, 33% for the auditorium as well. So that was based on more of a, that was in terms of scale of approaching seismic testing. There's a desktop assessment, which is an appropriate way of doing it. Then there's observational, and then there's more what we loosely call destructive, whereby they knock holes in the wall and actually do the assessments like that. And that's what Sean talked to earlier about as the next stage. In the next few weeks we'll be kicking off for the auditorium is that next stage of assessment to actually determine exactly the state of the infrastructure.
So essentially, if I could just put it crudely, what happened is we had a desktop assessment done, and then when we were doing the investigation work on the stage house, we had engineers in the building, and that was really the first blush of someone physically being on site and looking at stuff and observing it, and they said, hang on a minute, what about that? And this is where the questions really have come from, is as a result of an engineer being on site and a specialist engineer for those types of buildings. And that's what's really raised the red flag for us.
So we were continuing to let 1,249 people use the building of a desktop assessment, which we put at 50%.
Based on that earlier report, yeah, on
no,
the
no
earlier
engineers
assessment.
haven't been on site.
Yes.
Can I just get clarity on that? That as I
That's
understand it, that's the appropriate, we applied the appropriate methodology, which is standard practice.
That's correct.
Yeah, okay.
Going to page 26, paragraph 34. Patronage numbers. You said that one of the reasons for the falling numbers was the GFC. My recollection of the GFC, the global financial crisis, started in 2006, 2007, and the numbers held up very well for another 3 years after that, until 2010. I'm just trying to work out where the rationale comes from that the GFC affected the numbers of people using the Founders Theatre.
Well, I guess it's a matter of when you define the GFC and certainly the length of impact that it had. But there certainly was quite a long lag period, and it's certainly feedback we had from people that people were tightening their belts and not spending or on these events as they had been. So I use that as one of a number of examples.
The numbers grew for 4 years after the GFC. They increased. I'm just struggling to see how the GFC had an effect on the patronage.
Look, I base my comment on feedback I've had from others and their feeling at the time.
What date did Claudelands open?
2011. The impact that Claudelands would have had on Founders, probably to summarise, would be on two fronts. First of all, where we had shows occurring that would normally occur at Founders, and in the process of their ticket sales, for example, we found that they could actually attract a lot more, and Solomeo is a prime example where they would normally have gone to Founders, and we did convince them to go to Claudelands, and that was really one of their breaks in terms of understanding that they could attract pretty big crowds. So there is definitely a little bit of cannibalisation as a result of that from some shows that could actually, do that big leap from 1,000 or 1,200 people to 2,000, 3,000 or 4,000. The other key, one key impact as well was the movement of the university graduations, the Waikato University graduations from Founders to Claudelands. So they're probably two notable examples.
The first year was quite recently, though, wasn't it?
3 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, 4 years ago.
Sorry, what was it, 4 years ago? What happened?
Waikato University.
Oh, the varsity graduations changed.
The graduations at Claudelands.
So the numbers were the numbers that you're showing, and the rationale is ageing infrastructure and declining customer experience. What you haven't got there is actually we've got a new arena where a lot of people ended up going to the new arena because it was a more suitable location than the Founders.
Yeah, I would certainly stress that's one part of it. Yeah, agreed.
And then if we go to paragraph 31, where we've got the Isaac Theatre in Christchurch, a Regent, the Civic in Rotorua, and Opera House in Wellington. What's happened with their patronage over the time, over the same sort of years?
Look, I can only comment on the Isaac Theatre Royal, and that's only because I was in Christchurch over the weekend. But what I've been told down there is that their patronage, since they did their renovation program, or rebuild/renovation program, has gone through the roof. And they're extremely busy now. I understand it's got to a point where a lot of shows just can't get in on the schedule. I couldn't answer the question about Dunedin or Rotorua, but Chad or Richard?
I understand that Creative New Zealand have done some research recently which shows that theatre patronage across the country has started to rise in recent years.
Isn't that covered up in the report, isn't it, the business case?
Yep.
Could you point to the pages where it actually goes through all that and talks about some of those other theatres across New Zealand?
Yes.
I recall reading about it in that.
Sorry, I just need to look up the one page.
What page is it, Chair?
Page 105.
805.
At 100.
Oh. I know we get big reports, but...
The agenda is large, just not
it
that
is,
large.
yes. 105, right. Yes, that's right, I see. Ah, yes, I see. Okay, thank you, Councillor King.
So we've got an earthquake report coming that's going to take 2 to 3 months. We don't know what the outcome of that report's going to be. We're going to public consultation with 3 options. One is to demolish and build a new theatre, another is to permanently close the Founders, and a third is to basically fix up what we've got. How can we go to consultation to ask the public which way they'd like to go when we haven't got figures? We don't know whether we can even save this building. We've got no idea. We haven't done work on the foundations. We just don't know whether this building can even survive. So we're going into consultation with 3 possible outcomes. When one of those outcomes may never be able to happen, we may not be able to rebuild this building.
Well, as I said earlier on, we are assuming a worst case scenario in terms of what will come out of the seismic testing or the invasive testing. So we are going out with a position to say that if that does come up with a bad result, in order to rebuild the theatre or elements of the theatre to make it safe and bring it up in today's world, this is what the cost will be. This is an option. So we are giving, I believe, an option that covers whatever the outcome may be. The seismic testing we're doing is not for the whole building. It is just for those areas that have been deemed to sort of require some work. So I think I'd like to think that we are actually giving you a worst case scenario here under that option that we can actually work from and get views and opinions on.
So the seismic testing's for the auditorium roof only?
Yes, and also for to do the strength testing for the State House as well.
Aren't you going to get the foundations checked? I mean, that's what I do when I get a...
That's a part of it, that's all of it.
So you are checking the foundations?
Yeah. Yep.
So that the foundations aren't up to earthquake standard?
Well, we will have to see what comes out of that. But at this stage, there's a check, but there's no.
The indication so far is around the roof and the auditorium. There's been no indications that there's any issues with the foundations, and then it's around the connections of how those 2 buildings connect to each other.
So we've had people look at the foundations?
Chair, can you answer that, or?
Not yet.
No.
That's part of the exercise that you're going through with the detailed seismic assessment, which is underway at the moment, and that's what we'll find out more by the end of June. We'll know where things are going. But the reports have been done to show that it's the auditorium roof, which is the key concern, and then how the State House would be able to support a new fire system with the loads that are required in that space.
So at this stage, Councillor, we're not anticipating an issue with the foundations, but maybe the investigation will come up with something, but we're not anticipating it. Certainly, with any rebuild or refurbishment program we do at the theatre, foundation strength will be a part of the mix.
So in paragraph 65, you say you've got a relatively high degree of certainty about the building, and then in paragraph 63 you've got it's an indicative capital cost of 20 million, and then in your summary you've got the cost impacts or otherwise of the seismic performance. This could have a significant cost impact. We just don't know where we are according to your report, or Richard's report, is it? Whoever wrote this report, until we get the seismic testing done, but we're still rushing ahead. This is a really big decision, would you agree? That we're trying to work out the future of the performing arts in our city, and yet we're rushing ahead going out to public consultation before we've got the report back to say whether the building's even going to survive. And I'm just trying to get my head around what's the rush? Why isn't this put on hold until we get the seismic testing back? This is a huge decision.
Yeah, so Councillor King, instead of
I'm asking...
I want your question. What's your question?
Why are we rushing
I think your
ahead?
question
Why
is...
are we rushing ahead before we get the seismic testing report back with 3 options when one of those options may not be an option?
So there's a degree of worst, like Sean said previously, the $20.4 million includes an estimation for the seismic strengthening of the auditorium. So there's an assessment in there of that. Sean, you'd believe that that's a realistic number? Would you?
Yes, based on the advice we've had, yes.
And it's based on the fact that the premise has been put forward that if they need to strengthen this, that the building needs to be brought up to standard, that the additional amount of money between the 13.8 million and the 20.4 million would meet, for the most part, those costs.
Yes, that's the premise that we're working on.
That's not what your report says in paragraph 69.
Your own report says it.
Yeah, that's well, the paragraph 69 is being transparent on the unknown risks.
There are unknown risks, surely we've just established that. We haven't had an engineer look at the building yet. So I'd like to propose an amendment.
Yeah, no, when we get there, we'll cover that off. So, yep, so have you got
flagging
any
that
other
off and-
questions, councillor King?
I'm flagging to you, Madam
Yeah,
Chair,
no,
that
I
I
heard
have an
you.
amendment, so
Yeah, I
that's
heard you.
coming, that's pending.
Have you got any other questions? Have you got any other questions?
No, that'll do for now, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mallett?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just recently, just at the top of my head, in the 5 minutes this discussion has been going on, we've got Beale House, the Te Rapa Pools, the top of my very attractive head, Victoria on the river, slips on the river path. These are all unknowns that suddenly hit council because of deficiencies in our asset management plans, or we haven't been doing the jobs we thought we were going to do. Councillor King's exactly right. Paragraph 69, in black and white, you've told us we don't know what this is going to cost. We don't know what the cost impacts are of the seismic performance. We don't know what the cost construction escalation could be. We don't know how much money we could get from other councils. So how are we supposed to have confidence that making a decision today on something that is so ethereal, so far away from reality, so uncertain? With all due respect, I think it's. Do you think this is quite a reckless thing to do? I think it's reckless with other people's money.
Is that your question?
Yeah. How are we supposed to have confidence where even when you've got a report, even your own paragraph 69 is a big, and you've even mentioned the word, there's a big red flag. Well, there's a big red flag.
Yep.
But we're required to highlight those big red flags.
Yeah. Why?
So that we're being transparent with you where possible.
Because they might happen.
Yeah.
Could it happen?
Possibly,
okay.
yeah.
And if we wait until the seismic report comes back, we'll have a whole lot of that will be cleared up, won't it? Why on earth would we make a decision today, a big decision about a critical asset for our community, about a truckload of money from our ratepayers, when we can get? Hang on, this is the question. Why would we make a decision today when in a month's time, 2 months' time, when these reports are back, we'll have far more clarity?
The decision we're wanting to establish today is whether or not we go out to consult on a possible future with the community. That's the decision that we're looking to make, so that we can actually explore the options, and when we do have these reports back, we can put those options in the view of the community alongside whatever comes back from that information. So today is not about seeking approval to build a new theatre or to renovate the theatre. It's about actually going out and asking the community what it thinks.
Yeah, but part of that is, are you going to tell the community we don't have any idea what the seismic at risk is?
Yeah, I mean, the report's here, it's in the open, and we'll be providing a discussion document that will summarise our understanding as it stands and the options as we see them currently emerging.
And so if the seismic report comes back bad, what do we then do? Reconsult?
Well, basically,
sorry, what we thought was going to be 20 million is now going to be 35 million.
Well, I think that then takes that option off the table.
So why on earth would we go through the process of public consultation when we know we can give the public more clarity in I don't know the time when this, when is the seismic report coming back?
late June,
Right, so
which is around the
late
time
June.
the consultation would come back. There's still the two other options that remain that we need to get good input from the community on. Do we replace Founders? Do we build a brand new theatre facility? And in the case of whether it's a seismic report that comes back as we anticipate, do we renovate? So the options remain. If the seismic report comes back and basically suggests to us it's a no-brainer, don't try and fix it at all, then we're still left with those two options that we would really like input from the community on.
Now, you would have to go back to public consultation. You can't give people three options and let them consult and then say, actually, now there's only two. You would have to reconsult. I mean, we're going back out to consultation for $6 million right now. And that's a major change to your consultation policy.
I think remember.
So what I'm saying is, why don't we wait for 2 months for this report to come out?
So guys, you've asked the question in so many different ways. I think, you know, as Councillor King says, he can put a motion on the table if he wants to. You've heard what the General Manager's got to say. Are there any more questions on the report? Otherwise we'll break for afternoon tea. Any other questions? No? Okay, we'll break for afternoon tea and we'll come back at
That's the only reason I came back from holiday.
25 past, thanks.